What's up, everybody? Welcome to the cast. We have a lot for you today. I don't even know where to go in, so I'm going to make it up now.
I don't know where you're going either, so this is going to be great.
It's all a big circle. It'll coalesce eventually. Start with judgment. Did some breath work this week. One of the things that came through for me is the appreciation for some of the judgments that I have cast in my life and a deeper understanding of where they come from, which is, for me, and I think maybe for many people, having a judgment of someone. That guy's a douche, you know, oh, that person is this because of X, Y, and Z, you know, whatever it is when you go, they are a. That has been a way for me who was really actually quite shitty with boundaries and enforcing them to have an objective thing to enable me to have a boundary in my life. So for instance, I'll take one that is like not readily prevalent in my life to make an example. People would ask me about Andrew Tate. And I mentioned this in an earlier podcast. And the question that I felt was like, can I cast, what is my judgment on him? Is he good guy? Is he bad guy? Is he this or is he that? And I went back and forth. I saw one video that I liked and another video that I didn't. And the evolved thing, the mature thing that I eventually got to was, oh, I have felt uneasy personally about him many times when I've watched his content. Personally, that is not someone that I want to associate with. But I, as I get more mature, don't need to have a judgment of him to hide behind, if that makes sense. The judgment for me where that guy is a dick, that guy is an X, that is to save myself the onus of having to personally, individually say, you are not right for me, which has been a very challenging and frightening thing for me to do over the course of my life. And the only way that I've been able to separate from people, situations, things, is to find ways in which they are objectively, universally understood to be bad, and then make a case for that. Sometimes I can make the case, sometimes I can't. Yeah. But it is it's an inability to rest in my personal, not for me, not right now, not for me, for no other reason that I feel it in my gut.
So what are some of the downsides of, because I think if you want to make a snap judgment about Andrew Tate, not have him in your life, you're probably well off. What is the downside of that? So I want to distinguish between snap and judgment. When I use the word judgment, what I mean is a third-person omniscient perspective that I could deliver to you and make the case and make you agree with me. So if I were to say Andrew Tate is a bad person because he took tax, he told the women that he worked with that he had to pay taxes and really was stealing from them, as he admitted in this video. Like, that is how my mind used to work, to get you to agree with me, to get me to a place where I could defensively say, I don't want to be near that person. And so I would have to find things that were like widely accepted to be bad traits with like hard evidence that somebody else would agree with. And the problem for me is, if someone else didn't agree with that, I couldn't say, that's okay, still not for me in this way. So like, take religion. I cannot make all the arguments that religion, you know, where this book doesn't line up with this historical fact and how it's internally contradictory, which is different than saying, when I sat down in the church, I did not feel the presence of God. You know, like, that's a very different thing. And I understand where safer is there.
It is.
That is a clear example for me.
It is much safer to say, I don't like Andrew Tate, or I'm not into this thing, or I don't want to spend time here, or I don't want to.
We don't have any proof someone rose from the dead.
Yes.
Rather than I didn't have God with me in the church.
Yes. And well, even beyond that, where it exists for me with people, which is I often have to like find in my memory bank the specific way in which I was wronged and explain that to someone else to feel safe. When it comes to firing people, I need them to mess up 6, 7 times and document it. And then I need them to agree with my assessment of their performance. So I like start documenting and sending to them, even if they're like the first day contractor, you know, like
That's the level of fear I have on resting in my gut instinct when I have known, it's like, this isn't right. Like immediately, I can tell. I don't have I'm learning that I actually have a fairly good gut instinct, but have been afraid of it, because when you can say, well, you did mess up these 7 times, and I told you after the first time, and you have witnessed 5 of these, and you haven't hit it, that person usually goes, yeah, I see what you're saying. But when you say, this just isn't right, oftentimes what I would experience from that person that maybe I'm firing is hurt. Oh, I really wanted this job. I'm sad. I like what you're doing. Can I give it another try? Can I and it was hard for me just to go, I know this isn't right without you knowing it. And I get to make the discernment of who will work in the company that I am completely funding, paying for, you know what I mean? With regards to D&D or something like that. And so that just realizing that judgment has been a protective thing for me. And when I say judgment, I don't mean the speed at which I know something. So you said snap judgment. I feel like I have no issue with snap, as long as it's a snap feeling. And when I say, you know what, it's not right for me to work with you at this time, that doesn't mean that you're a bad worker, you're a bad person, you can't do your job well, you won't be successful. It's none of that. It's, I can't tell you why, but this just isn't right, and I have a gut feeling about it right now for this thing.
You also can't argue with it if someone's like, this doesn't just feel right for this project.
You can't argue with it, but you can be hurt by it.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. I would engage in the objective argument. You can argue about religion. You can argue about, well, that book didn't say that thing in the original Aramaic. It actually matched more. You can go back and forth. And I was much more comfortable in argument than I was in, I will tell you from the bottom of my guts that I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
Which is unarguable, but does and can and has made people upset.
Yeah.
So that was just something that I realized, and it takes, it's actually, as I see it, it's like it makes people upset, but it is actually a kinder way to move through the world, which is like, I want you to know I'm not saying anything about you. I'm not saying anything about religion. I'm saying it about me. I'm merely defining the sphere, the circle around what I do and engage with. And it has nothing to do with wherever else in the universe you go or what you succeed. And it's not a doubt or anything. It's like, I'm not even going to waste my time guessing where you will go next. It is unimportant to that gut instinct that says, not for me right now.
Yeah, and I think it's important to clarify this is for when you're grounding boundaries on something that is important or, I guess, beneficial to you, because I can see how that could fall into like narcissism, where you're just like, I'm constantly checking in with what I need right now, always. And then next thing you know, you're just never really empathizing with other people because you're so deeply trying to have your needs fulfilled as a way to like work in the world.
Yeah. Narcissism is one of those complicated things where what it looks like and I think what it is at its core are very different. So what narcissism looks like is total self-obsession, right? You look into the mirror. I think what narcissism is at its core is obsession with other people. It's obsession with what they think about you. It's obsession, you know what I mean? It is actually not grounded self-love. It is the opposite of that. It's not too much self-love. This is my burgeoning understanding of it. It is limited or an absence of self-love such that you become obsessed with the things that reflect back at you goodness of yourself. And so you become consumed with controlling other people's perspectives and opinions. And the degree to which you shut other people out is the degree to which you cannot allow their upsetting opinion to reflect at you, versus like a real checking in with yourself. What I have found is that I am having a both literal and metaphorical ability to listen that is increased. I feel the sensitivity of my ears open more. And I'll give you an example. This is not necessarily related to judgment, but one of the things that I notice where I struggle to listen is when I really want something to work. So like say within D&D, many months ago, I was trying to get Evan to play with us. It was very hard for me to listen to him be like, I don't really think this is right for me. I don't want to do this. And my listening was...
Well, what was your goal first off? To have him
My goal was to have him play because I think he's
it.
awesome. And I wanted him to join us, and I think he'd be great, and I think he'd be great at it, and I wanted to do it with him. And it was tough for me. You know, I entered into persuasion, which is, what do I do? What can I give you? Where can we meet? And there was still like some reception of what his needs were, obviously, and not a really open listening of like, what are you saying? What is behind what you are saying? And am I open to the broader universe telling me if you are the perfect person for this role? Which is not, do you simply have the skills? But it's also like, are you deeply wanting this? And if you're not evidently deeply wanting this, is it merely some sort of limiting belief that is in the way for you? And can I see that clearly without imposing my own desire to say, oh, that's just a limiting belief, so you'll be, then therefore you'll be in my game that is good for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You said this on a past podcast, and I just watched the clip, which is like the how to win friends and influence people style, which you can learn the phrases that get you what you want, but internally what you're saying out loud is something that you want, when the book is trying to teach you how to empathize with what other people's needs and values might be, and how that can get misconstrued. And you can say the words exactly that would hit what they want, and it actually come from a really narcissistic or not good place.
Yes, I think it's a stepping stone. And so I'm not anti how to win friends and influence people. I think when you go from completely self-obsessed child to, I don't know, adolescent, which is like, how do I interact with other people? One of the steps is, can I understand what they want while still holding tightly to what I need to happen?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of the Evan situation, which I heard persuasion occur, and I heard your how to win friends and influence persuasion occur, with the overall goal being Evan plays with me.
Yeah.
What you just said was, if I listened, I would have heard he would have done a little bit of play.
Yeah.
And that wasn't totally received at the time. And it's obviously not a huge deal.
Well, and I think because I had been on this journey more, it wasn't the level of persuasion I might have engaged in 4 or 5 years ago. I think what ultimately did make him decide to say yes was when I was able to ground in myself and speak honestly without persuasion how I felt about the project, what it meant to me. And I wasn't going, oh, Evan's the type of guy that believes in big projects, so let me talk about the size of this. It was like, I'm going to just open up and share this in my words, what this means to me. And this is the hard thing, without framing it in a way that you're going to like. And this is the really difficult listening, to listen to your response to my true opening of what this thing is. And I think there's a resonance that will or will not occur.
Ooh.
And I feel like people
feels like the opposite of a video I saw where Jordan Belfort's selling to some guy in Australia why his bank should join his fund. And it's just like, so what do I got to do?
Yeah.
And it's like, just give me one chance. The biggest downside, and you can hear the guy doesn't want to make a decision right now. And I hear that the sales tactic is not leave until you're committed in the smallest way to working together. And what I got from the video was, you just don't receive a no.
That is called not listening.
Yes.
That is believing.
It's called sales.
For me, I've been there. Not that hard. I was
I
never
also hear
comfortable
in another way, I saw a guy call people up, and he's trying to get them to sell their home for I don't know, some sort of real estate thing. And he's, posting his calls online, and the person goes, stop calling me. I want $300,000. And he's like, that's not a great number.
Yeah.
Everyone else in your neighborhood is at 325. If I offered you 320, I don't want to sell my house. And he's like, he posted it as like a way to get past objections. And the guy ended up hanging up on him. He's like, stop calling. I'm going to call. Like, the not listening within sales is so important, but also in this is, those two situations didn't seem to hit for me as well. Yeah.
Oh God, it's like sales is about not being able. Oh God, this is sad. If that type of sales is for people who lack the ability to discern okay, I'll speak for myself. If I were to engage in that level of persuasion, that would be because I couldn't discern and was too afraid of the larger gift that was trying to be given to me. because I had a narrow plan of what success was and what I needed to do. And that narrow plan is I need to make 5 sales a day. And when I make those 5 sales a day, I will make this much money. And when I have this much money, I know which house I will go get. And that would be my plan. And that would be not listening to what this, what was the better thing that was open for me. And sometimes the better thing is like to realize that this is sucking your soul to take money from people that don't want to give it to you, and that you could wind up in a large house with that money and you would be farther down a miserable path than you would be with the misery of not closing the sales. And that, like, and again, I think increasingly, part of the reason that people feel that that's how they have to operate in the world, and I know I did when I was young, is because they've never received a fuck yeah from anyone. You know what I mean? Like, you're going out, you're trying to sell yourself in dating, you're trying to sell your product, you're trying to sell your this, and you're doing something to which nobody has an authentic fuck yeah. So it's just various shades of no. And you're like, well, the only way to operate in this world is to push through people's no's, to find a way to manipulate their understanding or be so pushy or use psychological tricks so that they make a snap decision that is not in their best interest, but I can tell myself is in their best interest because that's what's required to be a salesman, is to convince yourself, rather than finding the version of you that people say fuck yeah to wanting to date, the product that people say fuck yeah to wanting to buy. And I think, when you feel that you have to push through no's, it's because you have probably almost never experienced an authentic fuck yeah in your life. And I have felt lucky enough to start to get some of that in my life with friends and projects and those sorts of things. And I understand that if you're not at that point in your life where you're scraping by and it's like, yeah, I need to eat tomorrow and I got to sell these shitty vacuum cleaners or whatever, in order to do it. I don't mean to disparage that. But I do think there's a level which I am getting to, which I'm trying to be open to, which is like, look, I got big plans. I want to make the D&D show work, and I want to get on television. I want to do this. These are big plans. But I'm it's not even trying to. I am authentically and deeply believing, which some of the time, that the universe is trying to give me something bigger than my small plans. And it has come through in the relief of listening has been more valuable to me than 1 million views on a video. Like, the relief of going, oh, I don't have to do it my way. And if it doesn't go my way, I don't have to figure out how to get the world back on track.
Yeah, and maintain that old thing that I thought I want.
And insist that this is the thing that I want. I can listen to everything that's coming in, the things that don't feel like gifts. I can listen to them and feel where I'm being called a bit more clearly. And I thought that would make me, if I listened more, that it would make me lack conviction and flighty and quit on projects and start this for a day and then leave to this for a day. And what I have found is that it actually opens up a much wider timeline for me. So whereas I was like, I want D&D to work, there was an implicit timeline that's like, I want this to be a profitable, obvious success that people definitely are signing up to work at and for and watch within 12 to 24 months. Like, that was what was sort of baked into my plan. And then we launched the video and it didn't track with what I thought would be required to do that in 12 to 24 months. And that was painful. And in listening more, what is coming through is that I'm being invited to play D&D, if it is right for me, for the next 10 years. And if it's right, you know what I mean? If I continue to enjoy it, if I listen to my own experience of it. And over the course of that, to play with people who develop their improvisational instinct, who develop a deep sense of trust, who...
the complicated thing is that you can do the same action but come from way different intentions.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing, like, we're at a crossroads with D&D right now because Tim may or may not come back, and you have thought that you might DM and practice. And I can see you going into DMing as a way to maintain that initial thought that in 12 to 24 months I will have this project work, because that is something you wanted to hold on to, versus like listening that Tim wanted to leave and you just wanted to fill in the spot. And this is actually something that is occurring as a nice stepping stone that you were going towards anyway. You had mentioned in the past you wanted to try it eventually, and it's just like universe is giving you this opportunity a little bit earlier. And I can see you going both the same direction with I don't know if there's a positive or negative, but with different intentions around it.
And the mere action of it does not let the outsider know what's going on inside of me.
From my perspective, it's like you.
Yeah. Let me step back and so Tim, who is a fantastic TM, if you haven't seen it, he's fucking incredible. He said that maybe he can film this summer, and then it looks like he's traveling, so he can't film this summer, which would push filming back to at the earliest the end of the year. And then it's like, well, let's see how it's doing. And he obviously wants the show to succeed and be successful, but is also looking for a level of success because he's got a million other things that he could do with his incredible talent.
Yeah.
And so that's just the background of what you were saying. And when I heard that, luckily I was doing breath work, and I was, we were chatting and he said that. And my first instinct was like, I got to get this back on track, because back on track means that he's here in May or June and we film season 3 and we do that. And I did a breath work, and what came to me in authentic bigness, which is like, dude, this is a bigger invitation for you. What you deeply want to do is invite people to live in your story, and not to strong arm the story, which I could fall into, but like to build a playground for your friends and then let them play in it and participate with them, and set up a magic system in a world that was a deep metaphor for how I understand reality. That was my unique thing. And then, letting people sandbox that.
Chuck Disney.
Chuck Disney. Yeah. I don't know what that is.
Walt Disney.
Chuck Disney. I got you.
Build a theme park.
And so I felt that. And then as I got farther from breath work, it became, I could practice this week, have three DM practice things ready, and we could still film in May or June, if you know what I mean. It's like, so there's an authentic, I'm being invited into something, which is real, and I feel it in my bones, and it's terrifying and invigorating. And then inauthentic, I got to stick to the plan, because the plan means that I prove myself in X period of time. And the truth is, my daily experience is of going back and forth between them and just trying to spend more time in listening mode. I also know this thing with Dungeons and Dragons that particularly I realize is there's so many things that draw me to it, but like, dude, the dungeon master role is like, you make all these plans, and if you're good, you let your friends fuck them up. And then you ride on the knife's edge of the present moment. And that's fucking scary. Like, because what I know I want to do is just make a perfect plan and then fucking strong arm you guys into it. and
oh no, that door's actually locked. Okay.
Looks like I rolled a 20. Sorry, you do not succeed in the thing that I want to, like.
Yes, you can.
And I can see, like, I'm wanting to set up a campaign where, like, within 6 rolls, different universes, you know what I mean? Like, where there's massive stakes, where I just rip myself off of my plan very quickly, and to ride that. And I think that I don't yet have the skill to be a fantastic performer from an improvisational thing. But what I also don't have the skill to do is to relax into not being a fantastic performer. And so that's what I'm trying to develop right now, is like the ability to suck in the present moment and to just be there and to not dip out and form plan, habits, or other things to escape the present moment. And I think that one of the ways, and this is, within charisma and improv, what I see that a lot of people have that I had is at the very level of you can't interact in the present is you just remember lines. Like, what do I say to her? Then what do I say to her? Then what do I say to her? That felt robotic and unfun very quickly to me and wasn't what I wanted. But there is a higher level of still not really present, but somewhat, which is like, I have these habits, and every now and then you'll say a thing that triggers a standard type of joke or a standard type of thing or a let's get to the dance floor and you spit. Like there are these habits, and that felt really dynamic to me. And I was able to come closer to the present moment because I didn't know exactly what I was going to say in any given moment, but I knew that there was always these off ramps. Like every few minutes, there would be these safe off ramps to like, oh, I could do this safe thing that I understand gets a laugh or like, you know, makes people like me. And, you know, that is, I think that's wonderful. I think that I'm happy to have shared that with more people because most people are in the, I can't talk to anyone. And then they're in a, I can only do it if I have the exact line of what to say. And to help someone get there is like a level of freedom that is fucking insane. Now you're on the highway. You're going, you just need to pull over every now and then.
Yeah.
It gets a little scary. And yeah, I feel like I'm being asked to exist outside of that. And it's one of the people that I've always admired. He does have some habits, but like Russell Brand is someone that when I look at him is like riding the present moment very, very often. You watch a Tony Robbins, excellent communicator. He's just got these blocks of stock things that he says. And it's a fact. He rolls through massive chunks of A/B tested communication packages that are incredibly persuasive and move other people and make them feel all kinds of things that can help positively impact their life.
Yep.
Which is very different from when I watch Russell Brand, which is like, I rarely see him repeat himself. There are some habits, but they are loose and light. What he will do in any moment, I can pause a video and go, I don't know where he's going to go, whether it will be serious or joking. And I admire that tremendously. And those have always been the breakdowns. It's funny because I've always tried to do these breakdowns. I was like, I wonder if it's like two-thirds joke, one-third this. Like I tried to math presence, I think, which was, of course, we all have some habits and you're going to be able to post hoc pull out some like, oh, statistically speaking, he does it 75% of the time. But it's, I think that's missing the essence of what I would like to do and what I believe Russell is doing.
So a new version of Charisma and Confidence coming soon?
And with a very different teaching method, you know, and this is why I can almost guarantee one day I will have an MDMA and or psilocybin clinic. The safety and the self-trust required to let go into that knife's edge has taken me, and I'm a very, I think, incredibly lucky individual, years and years and years. And I'm not breaking my back 9 to 5 worrying about paying the bills. That's like, I'm so fortunate to have had that wide period of time. And so, yeah, I would like to find a way to, if I can, you know, create the most potent version of that without just dumbing it down to be able to offer people, whether that's communities or retreats or ongoing. I don't know. I'm developing the program in my own life, sort of.
Yeah.
And it's a very different type of charisma. And what I say is like, it's like, this will attract anyone. It's like, it doesn't attract anyone. Not this new thing that I'm doing. It does not attract anyone. It attracts
healthy people.
It attracts what is most beautiful and what is right for you.
Yeah.
It is like, it attracts something much more special than anyone. Which I'm very, very, very grateful for. And the thing is, I know that for me still, there's an element of that which is not appealing because I think I know who I want to like me. I think I know which beautiful person on the internet I would like to date. I think I know which successful man I would like to rub shoulders with. I think I know who is right for me.
Yeah, there's a top of the pyramid even within spirituality or whatever this is.
Yes. And I have come and brushed and made acquaintances, and what I have found is that, if I'm authentically me, we do not connect. And it has been tough for me to receive that as a like, don't worry, we got something better for you in store. If you can just trust this, if you can just trust this path, we got something much better for you.
Yeah, that's a difficult. I went on a date recently. What's up? And I felt that urge to be like, I can make this go well, or I can show up as myself and know that this is not going anywhere just because of religion, like very religious person, and I'm not, and I can tell that that's very important. And so I can remain amicable in this conversation by not saying that I'm not religious and just like letting it sort of maintain, where I could show up as myself, be like, this, I won't go to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I felt that urge when you were saying it, like I could show up as myself, which is like, Sundays like to hang out, Sunday fun day, which is sauna and relax and have a protein shake in the sun. That's my religion. Yeah. And so I understand.
And if you don't
make
do
it
that,
good, or I could make this pleasant for us.
Yes. And this is, I
made it pleasant for us.
Well, that's okay. I don't think pleasant is, the question is, and there's no way to fake this. This is the other thing. I've talked to my guy friends. They're like, yeah, I really want to be attracted. Everybody wants to be attracted to the type of person that makes them sustainably happy. Almost no one is. They're attracted to their mama trauma or their daddy issues, you know, like, and you can try to like mental your way through that one and make rules and check marks of what somebody has to have. Doesn't matter. You're not going to do it until you are authentically attracted to different things, which only goes through difficult experiences with eyes open, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
But if you had, I mean, and there's been various points in my life and in my friends' lives, which I've seen, if you had gone there and you can't listen and you don't, like, let's say that you try to drag that out 2 or 3 more dates. Now more of your mental energy and calendar is filled up with someone that is not a match for you. Maybe you split with them after 3 dates and you go, yeah, but that didn't cost me anything. It's like, no, a lifetime of that, a lifetime of saying, I know better. Yes, I can force this for a short period of time.
It's one of those that
because I'm desperate for short-term love.
Well, to use your saying earlier, it's one of those like shades of no's rather than a heck yes.
Yes. And it's like, yeah, I'll work with that shade of no. Like, I'll work with that shade of it's probably not going to work. Like, that's, you know why? Because I'm fucking hungry. This is another thing that I've seen. People seem to be starving. And I've noticed
I think you
this.
Emotionally are talking.
Yes. I'm not talking about people
Food,
that have skinny bellies.
Because I haven't eaten yet today.
What I've noted, and is with my male friends, after we've done, you know, men's retreat and been more connected, open, kind, space holding, loving, whatever, overtly, and shown up in different ways for one another, I'm watching everyone's relationship with their significant other either end or undergo a pretty radical transformation. Watching it with myself, seen it with other friends.
It's called the boys' field day. I had this in sixth grade.
Well, there's a difference.
I rounded up all my friends. I said, listen, boys, it's 6th grade field day. It's blue versus white. We're team blue. We're going to break up with our girlfriends. It's the last day of school. We're never going to see them again. 7th grade is coming soon. I was the only one who broke up with my girlfriend, and everyone else stayed with their girlfriend, and then I was girlfriendless.
Yeah.
It's okay, though, because I never spoke to her, and it was 6th grade. I think
you followed through on your promise.
I followed through on my promise. But yeah, go ahead. Tell me the emotional thing that I was trying to capture there.
I think that's what boys do, is boys are afraid, and they try to cajole one another into camaraderie, and they try to shame dissenters out of the thing that freaks them out. You know, and I think that's it's just normal. Boy.
But what about Adam, who said he was down and then totally lied to my face?
Yeah. Fuck Adam, dude. There is something that is, we didn't I think that's significant, that story, which is we didn't all make an agreement to go be like, everybody put your hands in the middle. Like, I've done that.
Did.
Well, this is what I'm saying. This is what I've done at various points in my life, is we've all made pacts, agreements, swear bonds to not tolerate a certain level of thing and to hold one another accountable to the thing that we swore that we wouldn't tolerate in our relationships, which is very different than being not the sexual part of it, but being the thing that your friend is dying for, that he is getting from his relationship with a woman, which is oftentimes in my group has been someone who can, is connected to their emotions, you know, like at all, just to witness, participate in, is like a salve for so many of the guys that I know. And then you get a little bit of that. It's like, I can't leave this. Like, yes, she does X, Y, and Z. Yes, I pay for literally everything and she cries about it. Like, yes, whatever it is. Like, but I can't, the thing that I'm getting from this is it keeps me from starving. And so,
well, in a certain avenue that you don't have, like implicit in that starving is that you don't get it anywhere else. And I think we're talking too abstract. So let's say, and I've done the same with my exes, which is like, the girl I date allows me to turn off and watch movies and eat ice cream, which I don't do when I'm single. I stay 6-pack abs, I'm in shape. And so like the nice part of that softness of like being able to turn off at night and just watch a show I never would have watched. Yeah. And so if I was starving for that I wouldn't give myself otherwise.
Yes. So thank you for saying that. To bring it concrete, things that I've heard in my group. One was, when I'm with her, it brings out this playful side of me. Yeah. This silly, goofy, cutesy,
kid playful energy,
which is like not allowed around the boys in the same way.
Right.
For me, it was similar to what you described, this softness, this like place where weakness and rest had some space. Like with guys, it's often, weakness is not tolerated in most groups of men. It's extremely triggering when somebody is weak. Most guys would be like, oh yeah, it's fine if you're weak. But it's very clear that like, there's no camaraderie there. There's like, there's no, oh yeah, I fucking know, dude. I get it. It's, oh yeah, that's just not what I am experiencing, but like totally with you, which is, you know, bullshit. And I think that what I've seen, at least in my group, and I'm sure that women have analogs and there's other different kinds of groups of male friends, but when my guy friends in the last 12 months have been different with one another, it has made them less starving for the thing that was really, I think, a linchpin of a lot of the relationships, which could not be acknowledged, which is like, this is the only place I get to be weak or soft or rest or playful in this particular way. This is the only place I can get that.
And also another one to live, sorry to interrupt, to live out your fantasy that you're the type of guy who does stuff. I imagine like you have this idyllic version of what a guy does in a relationship and that you also get to play into that fantasy. You're like, I'm the type of guy who takes a girl to I'm just thinking Broadway plays. I don't want to go to Broadway plays, but like paying for the Broadway play and getting a taxi and having a fine dining thing. You don't take your boys out for it.
My need for validation is acceptable here, and it is met here, and I get the validation and I can do it. And if I were to take this unmet need to you guys for validation, you'd be like, dude, stop being gay or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there would be no space for me to explore the unmet need, and certainly not a place for it to be met in this relationship. And what I mean explore the unmet need is just be like, I feel this. It is a hole in my life. I'm craving validation. Can you even listen to that without bailing on the interaction? Like you don't have to give me the validation. Can you receive that from me and sit in the enormity of that fucking struggle with me? And up until the answer is just no for most groups of people, let alone men. And as I have seen the answer be yes more often, I have watched how that cascades to what is really cool is like people going back to their significant other, and either in one case it ended, and others it's been, this has to change. Like the way that our relationship has gotten to where, for instance, in exchange for this haven of softness and whatever it is that I'm getting, I will caretake all of your emotional needs. We will blame every upset on me, or at least in the sense that I could do something to fix your problem. That will be just implicit in our understanding. I can't tolerate that anymore. You're going to have to that's no longer, and I think for a lot of men, that's attractive. What they like, the feeling of control and masculinity that resonates with them, which is I can do everything, including make her feel good. You know what I mean? And so my job is to run around doing the chores that she assigns to me to make her feel good. And that starts with acquiring enough money to be able to take good care of her. Then it's about spending on the right places. Then it's about listening in the right times. And then it's about loving her in the way that she demands. And it's like, I will just this ability makes me feel really safe in a relationship because I'm your single source dealer of good feelings and you can't leave me and I need what you're giving me. When your friends can give you some of the stuff that is in that relationship, it's like, oh, I no longer want to be your single source dealer of good feelings.
Or yourself, if you can provide that to yourself.
And yes, and so I think that you're totally right because what has happened is first your friends give it to you, and I feel like then it's like, oh, I know a model for this from a guy. You know, I can do this myself. Like I'd never seen this from a man. Like I'd never gotten this ever. I just experienced. I mean, I'm all over the place.
I will say, when I was thinking about emotional feelings and someone being weak in front of me, my response is that very much like a physical injury has occurred, which is like fight, flight, or freeze. Like they're bleeding, and I can either patch this wound up, I can get out of here, or I can just sit there still. And I think the difference is with emotions, it's like you're technically not going to die, and there's like maybe a fourth or fifth or a number of options which you can help support, unlike a cut that's bleeding.
Yeah.
That not really have a ton of, like we said, models for how to act in those situations.
Yeah.
But learning, one is listening and being supportive, and then what else comes in on that is like you really need to know that emotion and experience it yourself in a deep way to be able to caretake in the way they need.
Yes. That's totally true. I think the fourth way after fight, flight, or freeze is be with. And that is huge. It occurred to me in my most recent breath work that I think a lot of guys probably have experienced this, but for me, go ahead.
Think of someone dying, like bleeding out, and you're like, I'm going to choose be with here.
Well, of course, that wouldn't be appropriate.
I know, emotionally speaking.
Yeah. There are times, obviously there are times where intervention is required. And the good news, like all of my friends were fairly good interventionists. Like you need advice, when there was a problem that could be solved with advice, we got it done quick. It was fucking easy. And those were solved quickly. And I received incredible advice at various points of times from many friends that like patched me up and life was made better. So all of those problems were handled. All the other, but the problems that require someone to be with you were just never, ever addressed. And I realized that goes, you know this, you live in the same household. That goes way, way back. I think probably in many households. But what I've realized is that when I am in a disconnected or freeze experience where I have treated myself the way that I was treated as a kid, which is I walk away from me. And I think that, unfortunately is how that is how I was treated as a kid. When I was disconnected and not with myself, there was a check-in. Are you okay? And that was it. If you're not screaming, if you're not fighting or flighting, there's nothing for me to do here. If you're in freeze, that's unnoticed and uncaretaken. And I have only recently had the experience of being able to treat myself differently than I was treated as a kid, which is to shepherd myself through freeze, which is to stay. It's like there's nothing I could have forced myself to do, but eventually I've started to get it. To be with and sit with myself in a freeze experience, which I am learning I have often, these moments of disconnection, dissociation, and not run to the next thing that is louder. Not go, hey, what's going on inside me? I don't feel anything. Oh, let's do some work. Let's go hang out with a friend. Let's turn on the TV. Let's get to the phone. Let's find something louder to pay attention to go, oh, that's interesting. You're very quiet. What's up with the quiet? Nothing, go away. It's like, that type of internal experience with wordless, but still that's the energy of it. To just go, I want to be with you when you're quiet. I'm not looking for my phone. I'm not trying to run away from this. I don't need something louder. You and your freeze and your quietness is enough for me to stay with, has been very healing for me and has enabled me to see that occur in other people as well. I'm starting to detect it. And it's like, oh God, I know very, very few humans who can see that and have gone through it themselves enough to go, I'm with you. I'm fucking here in this. This is enough for me. I don't need you to scream to get my attention. I fucking see you.
Yeah.
And that is it's a very unique gift in 2023. And it's one that has been like, whew, really nice to offer to myself. Making sense?
Makes total sense. I think it's big. The sentence that rings true is like the emotions that I couldn't be with or I couldn't tend in that way didn't ever get addressed. So I'm thinking of the times of fight, flight, or freeze. Mm-hmm. And then with the be with emotions never got tended to. So just to like summarize, there's moments of disconnection. Yeah, you're right. It's like, yeah, seems big.
I remember what triggered this was I would get in a fight with Dad and I would run away. And this is what made me really sad. I would run away to 3 houses down behind the generator.
Yep, great spot.
It's a great spot. You know the generator. There was 2 of them at least.
I would have gone further.
Yeah. Well,
they could see you possibly, but there was a shed eventually built. So
yes. And eventually I would come home and I would be unnoticed when I came back. It was, nobody missed me. There was no sorry. You know, there was no thing. And I always went, oh, this is what breaks my heart because I did it in my life. I said, I'm going to stay away longer next time. I'm going to stay away longer. I'm going to stay away longer. And there was
my silence loud.
Yes. And it never got loud enough.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me that never came back that just is like, I'll stay here longer until you fucking see me, until you miss me. And I understand, you know, this is not meant to be a blame fest of mom and dad, but they never came to me in that way. I had to come to myself in that way and then bring a more adult version of myself to them and say, I need you. I've been out there in the cold and I've needed you for a long time.
And I bet it's the person who came back home who asked them to do that rather than the person who's at the generator.
Sorry, say that again.
You said you left a piece, which seems to resonate with me, that you left behind the generator. So when you finally came back, you came back sort of as a soldier, but a sad soldier. And the piece that's
hazy, Henry.
Yes.
I came back frozen.
The person that said, I need you to be with me was actually talking about the guy who was still behind the kid who was still at the generator. Like they needed to meet that part of you.
This is what I'm realizing. I have treated myself like I believe mom and dad treated me, which is not to say the way that they did.
And I just projected, by the way.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is like all of these are parts of my own psyche. These memories are they're not here and now, but they exist inside of me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a significant memory. And it is that's how I handle disconnection, is part of me runs away and hopes to be found. And part of me that has learned from mom and dad goes, I didn't even fucking notice. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even notice. And what is sad that I felt is that this is the truth, I think, of them and of me. Especially I felt it in dad. The reason they couldn't show that they noticed, dad in particular, was how thick his shame was at the situation. And so is mine. It's like, I knew you were gone. Of course I knew you were gone. I just was too ashamed to come get you. I'm too ashamed to come receive you. And he would, you know this, the next day, if I was older, because there were times where, you know, I didn't run away. I drove my car off, and like the next day my taxes would be done. You know what I mean? It was like my car would be gassed up because he took it out in the morning. You know what I mean? Like you would have a new Galaxy notebook all of a sudden, and tickets to something, like, and no sorry could be spoken, no acknowledgement of what happened. And I relate to that. I know that and I've lived in I cannot speak this. Please let me pay it back without being seen. I'm too ashamed to acknowledge this thing. Please let me. And for me, I know I've felt the same way. It's obvious. It's like, I don't want your shit. I'll take it. I'll take the taxes. I'll take the fucking help. And part of me can see it now. It's like, I see this is what you were capable of doing. I see the love that is in this. I see that this was all that you had to express your sorrow.
Yeah, because there is a seeing in that, but there's also an incapability of being with.
There's both. There was a deep recognition of what had occurred, and also an inability to just sit in what had happened and mend sincerely and authentically and honestly what had gone down. And instead it was glossed over with the thing. And there were these, whatever. And so, yeah, I'm seeing in that and in a lot of friends and a lot of people, the tremendous suffocating, choking impact of their shame on them, of their unacknowledged shame. I've never heard my dad say the word shame. I've never heard fucking anyone say the word shame pretty much. You know what I mean? At least when referring to an experience that they are having. And I think I have felt it in me.
Regret might be another conduit.
Regret might be an easy way into it. Regret is easier for people to experience because I wish I did it different. Because
they're smart enough to know the other way.
Yeah, regret is I did know better, and
they have a solution to their shame.
And shame just is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so regret, I've felt a lot of regret, and I know a lot of people have felt a lot of regret.
Yeah.
And if that's a way in for people, but I do think that the depth of shame is where the route through lies. Because regret, I've lived in, I will learn from that and do it differently, and I just won't do that again. And that has been my strategy, is I will pay silent reparations for this thing and become a police officer, the most brutal police force in my own head that beats the shit out of myself when I fuck up again, which I inevitably do, almost like a magnet. I do the same fucking thing that I am ashamed of having done. And then I will make reparations and beat myself up more, and then make reparations and beat myself up more.
Okay, I understand the pattern, but I'm a little bit lost because it seems abstract.
When I think they go back to when I was a kid. Yeah, when I am mean, or it's just something as shallow as being short with someone. You know what I mean? If I am in my feelings and I react, I'll take an easy one to talk about, to the dog because I'm upset. And I go, get out of here, and I yell. It's easier with animals for me to later come up to them and give them a hug and say, I love you, I'm sorry, I did not mean to do that. Because I'm sure there's a reason.
That might be the reparation, and then you beat yourself up?
Well, not with the animals. That's what I'm saying. With the animals, I can discharge my shame through an acknowledgement of, I did that. That was not meant for you. And it is like, I am acknowledging the thing that happened. With people, it is harder for me to do that, which is if I'm short with a person, or I scream at a person, or I do something.
You leave a big tip or something.
I find a way to leave a big tip, and not say anything about it, not be noticed for it, and I'm paying people back in weird places that are not appropriate. Sometimes it's like really not appropriate. Like it's like they're confused. You're leaving an inappropriate tip here. Like this isn't right.
Yeah. Did you scream at someone at 3 restaurants over, and now you're just tipping me $50 for my $2? Got it. Makes sense. I don't know if this is interesting, but a while ago when I had thought about that field trip story, I remembered a dynamic was one of the friends, the boys, was the one who orchestrated it, and he wanted to break up with his girlfriend, but he didn't want to do it alone. He didn't want to be alone in it. He didn't want to have to confront the thing of, again, this is kids who didn't talk to the other partner. No one talked.
They were sixth grade.
There
was
sixth
no
grade.
partners. There was just.
I had never spoken to this girl. And I was like, yeah, like if you need to go through this, I'll do this with you. So that was interesting that like you had mentioned that the bros had a companionship that was important. And, you know, I didn't have any, there was no companionship with my girlfriend at the time. So it was like, yeah, we like all got together and we're like, we're going to do this together.
Cut them. Yes, there are, and again, I think this is what's tough is like, when you're young, you are friends with the kid next door, and then you go to school and you're friends with the kid in your class, and then you get to high school, and finally you can be friends with the kid who lives 7 minutes away. You know what I mean? Like you finally have some agency, but what you can't figure out as easily when you're little is like it's very likely that the person that you are first paired with is a shade of no in some way. Oh, that's not my path, or we're not meant to grow together in the same way forever, or like, and so you have that moment where it's like, yo, it's right for me to break up because whatever, it's not right for him, and I can't be with someone who's doing the thing that he's doing in 6th grade, and it's like, well, I'm unwilling to leave this circle of friends, so something else has to give.
Yeah.
Now we have to enforce rules on the circle of friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like the kid for whom the rules isn't right won't excuse himself and go be a free agent and find another group. He will find a way to crush who he is and fit into that group, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I understand it, of course, as a child. And I think as an adult, what you have to learn is like, say yes to the free agency as many times as you can. You know what I mean? Like, at least this is for me. To just listen to the ways in which something better is being offered and have patience and be able to survive and thrive through that period of uncertainty when you are between friend groups or successful projects or dating partners. You know what I mean? It's the other thing that all my friends do, which is you're in a relationship, and some of them have monkey barred, others have gone like this. You know, it's like relationship, couple dates, relationship, or like relationship, nonstop dating for 10 years. And like, then you're like, well, I'm the type of person who doesn't mind being single. It's like, it's fucking bullshit. You're terrified of being single.
Yeah.
You're terrified. You are just in a bunch of that's me, you know, in a bunch of short-term partnerships. But can you be a vol cell? You know, can you like be filled, deeply happy and then there's other people who are like not in relationships who are doing it. This might be you, out of fear to withdraw yourself from that. And like, I can't play this game anymore. You know, I don't want to, it's not like a deeply connected, I am creating space for what is right for me. It's like I'm shutting out everything that isn't right for me, which is different. And I'm better off alone, you know, as opposed to I'm fucking great alone and I've got all the space in the world for something that is remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that, I don't know a lot of people that do it that way, you know, don't know almost anyone. So I got that. And then let's see what else I've written down. This is, I read a book recommended by a friend that was called Swamplands of the Soul by James Hollis. There's a couple things that I thought were really interesting. The first is that he, I think, accurately says that addiction is a defense against anxiety. And so if you look at the things in your life, the way that you use your phone, the way that you use other stuff, and what happens when you sit down and meditate and you're honest about what's going on, it is, you know, first you call it, I'm bored. Then you call it, I'm this. And it's like, even the boredom is the addictive quality of your thoughts. Like, I think most people don't know that they are very likely addicted to thinking. They have not experienced what a slower thought rate looks like, and they don't realize that they use thinking like some people use coffee. You know, it's just like a constant stimulant to like keep you going, to avoid the anxiety that comes when you just sit and allow those thoughts to go. And so, yeah, just recognizing that addiction is a defense against anxiety, I thought was a lot.
So what are the first one I recognize myself as lifting or weightlifting is a huge sense of addiction to satiating anxiety. I feel way happier when I've finished a workout, and I don't work out that hard. Mm-hmm. It's clearly like a get this done to feel okay about yourself activity.
Yes, and I think this, you mentioned earlier, there's a way to engage in exercise which is different than that, which you could still do many times a week and often, which is to get
the thing
into
that drives
your body.
me there
Yeah.
is
Addiction.
anxiety
Yes.
and addiction.
Yeah.
The thing I enjoy there is different
than being in, yes, which is being in your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I don't know how much I get from going to the gym. There's a moment maybe, but it's different than like playing spike ball or when you play basketball or something like that. I don't play basketball.
You don't live vicariously through me.
I don't play basketball.
I know.
So yes, I think that a lot of this is the problem, that people are confused. I've been confused, which is like people have a lot of healthy habits that are driven by an addictive quality. And it's because at the most foundational, they're highly anxious. Almost everyone is highly anxious, down to the level of their thoughts are anxious thoughts. And so to get them to identify that their healthy eating habits or their healthy gym habits are totally addictive in the way that they're being generated and that they are reinforced with anxiety. And, and then they'll defend and say, no, this makes me feel good, which is like, I know that is somewhat true, but I am talking about the larger pattern of anxiety that drives this, which does not have to be connected to this and could be rooted out through slowing down some in your life. I had to, and I think I am starting to be able to get back. I was obsessive. I mean, it was never in ridiculous shape, but I was obsessive about the gym. I was obsessive about the calories that went into me. I remember I was asked to go on a camping trip, and it was like stressed me out that I wasn't going to get my chicken and broccoli, and I might have to eat a carb. It was that was stressful to me. And the only way, I'm not recommending this, but like I then had to have a period of time where I was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to lay around. I'm going to become a sloth. I'm going to sleep like this in my bed. I'm going to eat a bunch of pretzels and junk food and crap. And like, I'm going to do whatever I can to let go of this. And now I feel, which is nice.
Do you think that was a be with activity or a flight activity?
That was an inability. I didn't know how to do it. It's just like I have this thing that I'm obsessing about. What do I do? I will not do it anymore, which is like, that doesn't really confront the core of the issue, which is the anxiety.
Yes.
The anxiety. It's like, how do you address the anxiety? That was my attempt to get to the deeper thing. And that's why I say I don't recommend this approach.
Strategy.
I don't know that it helped me remarkably with the anxiety. I think the anxiety, what it did help me with is that anxiety moved. And in watching it move from the gym to work, I could almost catch it as it was like, oh, I didn't used to care about this shit. And now I'm obsessing with it. You know what I mean? Like, that's not me. That's a new development. And so that was a bit helpful. And seeing that and finding better ways to deal with it, which have been the ways that seem to address it for me, is anything that helps me be with it, which is breath work, psychedelic medicine. Those are the really big ones.
Getting in your body.
At the beginning, massages. But yeah, at the beginning, it was also some of the parts therapy stuff as well, which I've leaned back on now. So that's one thing that I liked in the book. What I also found interesting about this book is that it's written by a psychotherapist, and he has a lot of things like this where it's like, oh my God, that is what guilt is. And it's like, these are the 3 types of guilt. And it's like, these are perfectly categorized and laid out. He does it with despair. And there's and he knows where they come from in the very likely root of the trauma in the family line.
Is it a first told story of a psychoanalyst telling his story? Because the way you're telling it, I'm a little bit confused.
He tells it third person and then gives you examples of clients. So like Kendra came in and her mother was an X, Y, or Z, and she had always walked through. Here's what's crazy. This is, he tells all these patient stories, and about halfway through the book, it occurs to me that like none of these patient stories are ending well. It's always like, sadly, he did not have the courage to continue with psychotherapy and get through it. It's like, sadly, he did not have the courage. He never got through it. And then there's this one, dude, there's this one, which is like, God, I wish I wrote it down exactly. This woman is having like numbness in her left arm, and he tosses her a pen. She grabs it. He goes, how come it's not numb anymore? What do you want to do with that arm? And she says, I want to stab my mother. And he goes, And it was a huge breakthrough. And just a few weeks later, she choked her mom nearly to death.
She got her repressed pain out, dude.
Just a few weeks later, she choked her mom nearly to death. Sadly, she did not continue with psychotherapy after that.
She was in
and
the
I was like,
ward.
I wanted, with love, because I did appreciate it, I was like, bro, can you read what you're fucking writing? I don't know if you chose the worst outcomes of your patients, but you're fucking know-it-all. This is, and again, I'm angry because I have been like this. You know the root of everything and you can't help with anything. You can fucking point out how and why and explain it, but you're helping fucking none of the stories in the book, man. Maybe all the healthy patients were excluded from this book.
Maybe he's writing a warning to everyone who might take his psychotherapy as
I don't know. Maybe it was an editorial oversight of the type of stories he told, but I actually think what it is a indictment of the limitations of psychotherapy, which is like, yo, great start. It is not wrong that this is how these things occur, but it is wrong that knowing how they occur heals them. It is wrong. You know what I mean? Like there are better modalities for healing this stuff. And he's an older guy. I think at the time that was probably cutting edge. That was as deep as people could go. And some of them could be healed. There was like 1 or 2 stories in the book that did go well. But so many of them were just, sadly, they never got over it and they divorced later. And it was just like, listen. And again, I understand if I didn't have breath work or psychedelics, the best thing I would have would be psychotherapy.
What is psychotherapy? You sit in front of
psychotherapy is sitting down with someone. It's there's a lot of different schools in it. You can do Jungian, you can do, all kinds of stuff, and talking it out. You can do active imagination exercises. You can do, what does that make you feel type thing where people are in a mode. There's lots of different sub things, but the broad thing that I'm describing and understanding is this mode of one-on-one, usually once a week, conversational therapy where you discuss and try to rationally understand the deeper motivations of why you pick the person that you pick. Okay. So it is what we're talking about here, but I want to be clear. The how, for me, is not listen to more of this podcast. This is maybe an inciting incident for you to do these things that I think actually help, which is like holotropic breath work and psychedelic medicine, if it's right for you, under the professional guidance.
Got it. So his solution was to do more of the talk therapy.
Was to do more talking.
Okay.
Yeah. And some of them have incorporated exercises. Some of them will do like trust falls and things like that, which are, are good. Some of them will do tapping and all this other kind of stuff. And remember this memory, access a different resource, like that has all been small beans to me and very useful for a phase of time. And I don't unrecommend it for those of you who are getting started and don't want to do the stuff that I'm talking about.
Right.
But yeah, it seems like in terms of changes, I feel like I have found what appears to be an inflection point of like effective treatment
yeah.
for what psychotherapy, I think, accurately identifies as an issue. So yeah, that is what I did this week. There is one more thing, but I will touch on it next week. For those of you, you can come back or next time we have one of these type, because I know we have some guests coming, which is the relationship with competitiveness, where the drive to win comes from, where it is unhealthy, and how it relates to play. And when I told my ayahuasca story, one of the first really personal things I did on Charisma on Command, you can check that out, it resonated with a lot of people, was this inability to relax into play. And I've got stories and memories of like, shit, that was fucking brutal. To myself, that is. So let's wrap there.
Cool.
And we're going to hop over to Patreon now. We're going to share what we have learned in terms of business this week with Dungeons & Dragons podcast, Charisma on Command. If you guys want to check that out, it is the primary source of funding that we have for this. It means a ton to us. So please, if you're interested in checking that out, a lot of people have enjoyed it. Click the link in the description below to join our Patreon, and you can check that out. Also ask questions, which we answer in Patreon. And I think that's it.
There's D&D episode 4, the greatest episode of all time, coming out on Monday of 3 days after this comes out.
Good call to action. Perfect. That's it.
That's it.
All right. Peace, guys.
Peace.